Well, happy week 2. I wanted to talk a little bit about our first essay and the topic that we've chosen, and also the articles as folks are preparing to do blog 2. So, in our Module 1 folder, you will see that I've posted there's the Module 1 assignment sheet, and under that you will see the compare and contrast essay assignment sheet. This is the first essay that we will be doing. For all of these, I try to upload the file, but then also paste the text in there. That way, if people are using screen readers for ADA accommodation, they can just look at the text that's there. If you would rather download the Microsoft Word file and print it or save it to your computer, that's there. So that's why things are repeated. Our first essay, you can see on the Module 1 assignment sheet, is due September 8th. So by the end of day on Sunday, September 8th. So we have some time, but not a lot of time. So blog 2 this week is asking you to read the first essay, or read the first article. And like I posted on the announcements, the first article, I didn't know what it was going to be when I made the module assignment sheet because you all hadn't voted yet. So it just says Article 1. Article 1 is the Julia Calderoni article, Burying Dead Bodies Takes a Surprising Toll on the Environment. So that's the article that we should be responding to for blog 2. There's an extra credit blog 1 this week where you go find some other source that's about these traditions, about the environmental impact of our traditional way of burying or cremation, or some of these new eco-friendly green burials. And there are so many out there. I saw one the other day where they put you in a suit with mushroom spores so that as you decompose, you feed all the mushrooms. I've seen ones where they freeze dry the body and vibrate it with sound waves until it shatters. And then they put you out and compost you. Or they plant you in a tree pod where they can turn your ashes into jewelry. Just all sorts of stuff. So Extra Credit Blog 1 is saying go find something else about this topic and then tell us about it. Like the announcement says, you don't have to respond to other students' extra credit blogs, though certainly it's awesome information. Go take a look at it. The compare and contrast essay, you guys have probably done these types of essays before. What we're going to be doing is looking at, as you can see on the compare and contrast essay assignment sheet, we're going to look at the pros and cons of these different types of death rituals. So we're going to compare and contrast the cost, the materials used, the resources used, the availability, right? I live down the street from my husband's family's graveyard. I know where I can bury a body. Do I know where I can have a green burial or how to dispose of somebody at sea? No. So we're going to look at those types of concerns as well. For next week, and I'll post a reminder, it's saying, for the blog, it's saying, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm confusing myself. When we look at the assignment sheet, we've got 3 articles. So we've got this Calderoni one, but we're also going to read one by Sophie Yeo. If anybody knows how to pronounce this author's last name, I'd appreciate it. And then there's another one by Shannon Palace. So we're going to be reading 3 and, taking all the information from these to compare and contrast. The topic of death rituals, we don't like to think about death because it hurts when we lose a loved one, and it might be scary for us to face our own mortality. And if anybody has recently lost someone, or even not so recently, and this is a tough topic to get through, I completely understand. But when we look at our death rituals, it's one of the things that will tell us so much about a culture, right? If we look at what they believe about death, that shows you where they place humans in the grand scheme of creation. what they deem as holy, what their philosophy is about life and the afterlife. Some of these death rituals benefit the dead, we believe. So if you think about traditions that people would do so that the soul could move on in the afterlife, or certain traditions like that. But in our American ones, we don't think that if we embalm Mama, we're going to help her get into heaven, right? So some of our traditions are for the dead. Most of them are just for the survivors, right? But when we look at our death rituals in modern America, we are very detached from them. Very few people actually care for their own dead. Very few people actually know specifically what happens with embalming and restoration. We have vague ideas of they drain us and put the chemicals in, but is it required by law? Does it actually prevent the body from ever decaying? We don't really know. That's not the case in other cultures where they're very involved with their death rituals. The important thing to think about is that, we're taught what the ancient Egyptians did. I remember in 5th grade learning about how mummies were like mummified, that they, hooked the brain out the nose and put the resin in. But so we're learning the traditions of a culture that no longer exists. I mean, certainly there's Egyptians, but it's not ancient Egyptians still mummifying their pharaohs. But we don't learn about what we do in our own families and what we may have done to our own bodies. And I think that that's not good. I think we should know what we're choosing, what we're paying for, or what our options are. And so when we look at something like the Dani tribe doing finger amputations, they cut off for every death a woman survives, they cut off part of our fingers. Or we look at ancient Papua New Guinea where they would cannibalize their dead. Or we look at the Tibetan sky burials where they basically take you out and feed your body to vultures. It's all shocking. It's all unsettling. It could be we're just grossed out by death, by blood. And we're so used to our cultural goggles that we view embalming and, the concrete vault liners, which don't prevent water from coming in. They just so that when your casket collapses, it's easier for the landscapers to mow at the graveyard. It's the only reason why we have those. We look at our traditions as, well, they make sense, that they're normal, because we're used to them. Just like when we look at all cultures, whether you eat a dog or not, it's just culture. Whether you eat a cow or not, it's culture. There's no hard and fast rules. It's completely arbitrary. But we're raised in our culture and we think that, yes, this is the right way to do it. But if we were raised in another culture, we would think that that was the right way to do it. So one thing we have to do is try to take off our cultural goggles and then put on the other cultures. So if we look at Tibetan sky burials where they take the body out and feed it to vultures, that seems barbaric, like we're feeding Mama to the vultures, right? But how is that different than brutalizing her body and pumping it full of poison and burying it in the ground for the worms and the bacteria to eat, right? It's all just what we're used to. And if we can put those cultures' goggles on, then maybe we can see the Tibetan sky burials, how they see it, right? So I'm excited that we picked this topic because this is something that affects all of our lives, certainly. And we should know what our funeral laws are. We should know what our options are, what's required and what's not required. I'll be posting probably an extra credit blog for you guys to go in and read some of these things. And then post a response to it. That'll probably be next week. It's not on the assignment sheet, so it'll be extra. But make sure that you read all 3 of those articles and you start thinking about, okay, here's what it says about cost. Here's what they say about energy use, and gathering that information and lumping it together so that we can compare and contrast these. Make sure to ask any questions that you have, either through email, through calling, through posting a thread on the questions forum on Blackboard. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say about this.